at the bottom are all part of. We're excited to announce Rene's informational session where he will be speaking on exactly how to best optimize your credit cards, credit scores, and all the different ways to utilize credit card points and basically elevate your game. So I'm excited for him to be hosting the session. Big thank you to him for sharing his insights and his expertise and really helping this group grow. And thank you for everyone who's jumping on now to participate. And excited for the session. Rene, appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no worries. I send it out to my community, so I'm stoked to see a few familiar names in here. And for the WICK group, that if you guys don't know who are watching and only know me, this is a group that was co-founded by my buddy Max and his friend Chase, which is now a good friend of mine. And it's been built up to basically give us a trustworthy, diversified Rolodex of people that we know from each other, and then combine that into a trustworthy group that can all share business and work together. So it's been really cool. And one of the things that I wanted to do for the group was offer my value in the credit space, but more so the financial literacy aspect of credit. There's obviously the flash of points and free travel and cash back and stuff like that, but I know it starts with fundamentals. So that's a little bit of what I'll be going into on this call. And then we'll be talking about, the rewards that you can actually get from using credit correctly and responsibly. So I'm stoked for that. So I got my Canva ready to go. Max, if you don't have any extra words, I'll just get right into it. Let me know.
Yeah, no, I think we're good to go. You could kick it off.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you, Rene.
Yeah, and then you guys can watch the comments, and then you can also let people in if they pop in the meantime.
Yeah, going to continue doing that. Perfect.
Cool. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's
Cool.
see. Got my Canva here. Let me just do the whole desktop. Cool. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Coming through loud and clear.
Cool. So I always start my presentation with an intro just because I want to roughly explain who I am and a little bit of my backstory. A lot of you guys might know me from Instagram, but you might not know my entire Instagram reputation or profile before Mr. Credit Gem. So before that, I was RV3 Productions. It's in my bio. You guys can go check out my old film page if you want. But I was a full-time videographer from around 2018 to 2020. So coming out of high school, took that up and used that to go places in the entertainment space. So I was all up and down the California coast, working with a lot of people in the sports, entertainment, and music artist space. So basically hustled my way as a one-man band freelance videographer all the way to, working with A-list celebrities and athletes. And that whole space kind of mixes really well in LA. But after that year and a half or 2 years of like really grinding my face off, I had this weird epiphany, ironically, at the top of my career that really just was unsettling in my like drive for what I was doing. It got me to kind of like zoom out and think about what my next 5 years was going to look like. And being a one-man band, having to grind your face off, kiss ass, and get a little bit of money for the impact you were making, it just kind of made me realize that, if I play this out 5 years, I'm going to have a handful of videos that I'd be proud of and some vanity on the gram, likes, posts, comments, whatever. People think I'm doing big stuff, but in reality, I wasn't pulling as much capacity from myself that I wanted to. I knew I was capable for more. So I made this crazy decision right before COVID to completely abandon all my, I literally stopped taking gigs, put my camera away, put my laptop away. And I was like, I'm not using this video stuff to make money, because I realized that I had gotten from, entrepreneurship style to just basically a fancy job where I was just looking for a handout, looking for the next gig. And I would use that money and scrape up what I could to go buy the next lens or a camera body, and then I would just restart again after I had enough savings to go buy that little extra upgrade piece of gear, and I'd be back at zero. And I didn't have any regard or knowledge for how money worked or how business worked in that space. So now, knowing what I know, I could say that I could go back into that space with the credit knowledge that I have and the business knowledge that I have and go do something with it. But I also felt like it wasn't something that I could pour into people in like a really duplicatable manner. And that was also bugging me the whole time that I was working in that space, was because if I go deeper with the videography thing, I knew that I was just going to be kind of boxed in with my knowledge to the videography space. And if people came up to me, you know, at a lower point in the business or self-development type of journey, I couldn't necessarily just drop that in their lap and say, hey, you can go do this too, like right now. Because I do believe that that space is it's not the most impact that you can give to somebody. Like, you know, now knowing what I know, you don't even need all the flash and perfect lighting and perfect microphones to even make an impact with video and media. That was my original understanding at the time. But now knowing what I know that it's just about being authentic and having something to broadcast yourself and show the value that you have. And so I felt like I need something, because if that's not the barrier, I need something that I can actually teach confidently that would change a lot of people's lives. Because I was looking at impact and I thought 5 years from now, if all I have is some cool videos, I didn't want that to be my legacy. So I pulled out of the space, moved to Hawaii for a year, worked on Uber Eats and DoorDash literally for a year straight. Funny story about that is I had my first $2,000 business credit card and my first personal credit card, the Chase Freedom. And then I had the Blue Business Plus. And I liquidated the Blue Business Plus. I took $2,000 off of there and I bought a car. And I figured, okay, this is now it sounds like an incredibly risky, crazy move. But I was like, I know that if I can get like, and Uber Eats was popping at the time because obviously COVID, nobody wanted to go outside. I was making $200 to $300 a day, just going 12-hour shifts, 10 or 12-hour shifts on food delivery. And I figured if I could just do that for a week straight, so all 7 days, I was like, I can make this $2,000 back if I really put like, you know, the grind into it. And sure as shit, I went through the whole 7 days and I saw like my payout. I'm going to find a screenshot. I'll put that in a presentation later, but I had like $1,900 earned in that first week. And that was when like, I was like, oh, I just used credit. So OPM to go run a play basically, because I was like, I'm going to, you know, use this car for at least a week, ideally. And that's like my risk factor. But after that, it would just be break even and it would be all profit. And that's what happened. I ended up spending a whole 12 months in Hawaii, literally just doing food delivery. And the whole time, the reason I chose the food delivery niche was because I knew I didn't know a lot, but I knew I didn't want to go deeper into the videography space. So I allowed myself to pick a job where I had my time back. So the whole time, 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, I was literally just headphones in, listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, audiobooks, just soaking in knowledge the entire time, because I knew I was essentially a blank canvas. If it wasn't, you know, editing for a project, which gave me the gift at least of storytelling and you know, technical skills of video editing. Other than that, I didn't know about the business side. I didn't know about the financial literacy stuff. I didn't know anything about credit. I was barely getting into it. Thank God. I don't know how I got approved for the 2 cards that I did. And so I just knew that there was so much more to learn. If you guys know me, I posted a few times on my story in the past, like this pie chart, and it's like this tiny, tiny sliver. It was given to me by a friend, Caden, who's actually in the WICK group. But it's a tiny, tiny sliver that says the stuff you do know. And it's like a slightly larger bit of the pie chart, maybe 2%. And it says the stuff you know, you don't know. And then there's 98% that is the stuff you don't know, you don't know. And to me, that was like so impactful to me when I saw that photo in like 2017, when it was shown to me, that I kept thinking about that as I was going through my career. And I figured, you know what, even if ignorance is bliss, even if I'm going through the videography style of, you know, my career, and I could just keep going with this thing and be totally fine and not know what I was missing out on, that was itching at me way too much. And I knew I had to make a decision, because I knew that if I put my back to the wall, I could figure something out, and I knew I had more impact opportunity somewhere else. So that was a little bit of my story on like how I made the shift from like doing videos for A-list celebrities to screw all that. I'm going to go develop myself for a whole year, not knowing what's going to come from it, but knowing that I can pull something out of it because I had the determination and I was down to put in the work. Came back from Hawaii, kind of like a little prideful, because I was like, I literally put my main form of hustle away. Didn't ask for a penny from my parents, made it work, came back, and I had this knowledge that I was posting all over the gram for free, doing consults for free and building up a value base of the credit stuff. Slowly, like I think it was January, February of the year that I was back, rebranded as Mr. Credit Gem, started putting out value, doing consults, doing lives, and just really going deep in that space. And that's where I saw that originally I was going to learn the credit stuff to do my own ventures like e-commerce and all that, which I still do on the side, a small scale. But then I realized that the need is so much there for even just learning what I had learned up to that point, that I thought this needs to be my full-time thing. This is the place where I can give the most impact, because everybody in the United States has the same level playing field opportunity from scratch, blank canvas, when you're born, and then you turn 18 and you have that same 9-digit code social security number that can do the exact same thing. So I couldn't tell everybody, hey, just go be a video editor and go get a $4,000 laptop, go get a creative eye that you can't really, paste into somebody, and then go try and, find clients. I was like, the real duplicatable factor here is everyone can get a 9-digit social security, go get the right accounts, go build it up for 3 months, 6 months, go data mine with this bank, get this credit card, and do the right methodology, because it works the same for everybody. So I really like the fact that I could teach it and have it be copy pasted into people. And that's what gave me the passion to really dive into this space full time. So again, maybe a little bit long winded, but that's a backstory on me. And that's how I got so involved in this space. So this presentation is going to be, it's called Points 101, but in reality, we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of credit that lead into the points. And then you will have an understanding of both credit as a financial literacy aspect and the points benefits that you can actually get to do the flashy stuff that you guys might see on my Instagram, like, go to 5-star hotels and go on flights for free and stuff like that. And understand the opportunity cost that actually exists with not getting into this game, basically, because the credit system is really a game. You have to know, it's not just because ironically there's points involved, but you actually have to know the parameters of how to get good at the game that we're allowed to play. So real quick, by the end of this call, you guys will have a lot of big credit myths that I see in the space debunked, hopefully. So we will completely, eradicate all the misinformation that I hear a lot. You'll also be able to understand the loopholes in the credit card points world, worth thousands, literally. I've literally, taken a trip to Max, which I'll break down later in the call. Got about, on that trip alone, about $5,000 in free value just off points. So I did not go out of pocket. And those same points would be worth a fraction of the cost. I'd say like 1/5 of what I got out of them if you use them in the ways that the banks will try and push on you as way more convenient and obvious that you don't want to be using. So I'll talk about that in a bit. You'll know the best cards to get your foot in the door and start building up points while building up your credit responsibly. So it's not just about the points, but we do want to set ourselves up in a way so where we have, I call them chess moves. So we have long-term plays that are being built while also solidifying our foundation of credit and not just being, points hungry. We're also going to have strategies to maximize our spend that we currently do and hit bonuses without changing our habits or our lifestyle. So for those of you that, might only spend a couple thousand a month, $1,000 or $2,000 a month, your rent might be your biggest expense of the month. We'll teach basically how to include that to hitting those bonuses so that you don't actually have to go spend just to hit a bonus. And that's counterintuitive because we don't want to be using credit in an irresponsible way. And lastly, we're going to be talking about some ways to start earning points now, even if you don't have a credit card at your disposal, or if your credit is shot, there's still plenty of ways to earn these points to use them for ecosystems so that we can redeem them from travel. And I have 2 resources for you guys that you guys will find out about, and then a few partnerships that you guys will be able to literally sign up for today. It's nothing paid. It's literally just connecting your accounts amongst companies and start earning points just for normal spend that you're doing already. So no credit involved. That's going to be pretty cool. Next. So I wanted to make sure that we get the fundamentals out of the way. So this first few slides are going to be talking about credit lessons. So more about the financial literacy aspect of things. So first off, I get this question a lot, like, why would I even try to, get my credit card setup built if it's so much easier to use a credit card or a debit card, sorry. And the first reason that I like to give people, which usually shocks them a little bit, is I say, for your safety. And a lot of times they'll look at me and be like, what do you mean? Like, why would it be safer to use a credit card? And long story short, it would be the sense that credit is the bank's money that they're allowing you to lend to you to use periodically so that you can pay it back. The debit card is literally a window to your checking account, which is your money. So in the sense of it getting stolen, and I give the alley example because imagine you're in an alley and say you have $10,000 in your left pocket, that's the bank's, and it's fully insured and nothing would happen if that got stolen and you filed a claim. And then you have on your right side $10,000 of your hard-earned money that there's no policy on, and if they took it, you would literally have to go through way more hoops to even prove that it was taken and not you basically messing with the system, because there's no incentive for the banks to justify that you lost your own money, there is a high incentive for them to believe that you lost money that was theirs, because they have policies in place to cover their ass. So in the case of identity theft, someone came up to you in that alley and they, they wanted $10,000 from you. Which one would you give them? Obviously the one that's covered, and it's not going to hurt anybody if it actually gets taken. And obviously it's still an inconvenience. But if you call up the credit card company and you say, hey, there's a transaction on here that I just got an alert of, and it definitely wasn't me. And I'm gonna need you guys to investigate that. The process for disputing is literally like, oh, really? Which transaction was it? Oh, this one? Okay, sounds good. We're going to cancel that card. We're going to send you a new one. Not close your account, by the way. They're just going to literally cancel the 16 digits that you see, and then they're going to send you a new one. Probably will be at your house within 3 business days, and then they're going to wipe that charge from your bill so you don't even have to pay it. And then they're going to go do an investigation, but more than likely, because there's fraud protection, purchase protection, and chargeback protection in all the cards that are basically existing, because that's one of the main key components of credit, you're going to not have to worry about that at all. And not a single dollar got taken from your checking account throughout that whole entire time. So if it takes 30 days for them to finalize the dispute and get it off your bill, nothing happened to you. Whereas if your debit card was skimmed, and believe me, even though there's PIN codes on debit cards, they still have a possibility and honestly a high likelihood of getting skimmed when you're using them for everything and anywhere. And when that happens, if money gets drained from your account, so they skim your card and they take it from your checking account, the process goes from about 30 days or less, and in the best case, like a couple of days, to literally a 90-day process where you have to file a police report, an affidavit. You have to basically completely beg them to help you out, which they don't have an incentive to do, because that's your money and they're not tied into that at all. So from the safety aspect of things, I'm not sure if you guys have ever dealt with that on the debit side, but it's a major headache, and way easier and better peace of mind when you're using credit and you have that sort of interaction. So yeah. So, and then for business owners, if you're a business owner that understands you're doing deals with people and sometimes they might run off on you, chargebacks or purchase protection might be a great way to cover your ass when you're doing business with somebody. Like we'll say, if a real estate investor is doing business with a contractor. That contractor, a lot of contractors can be known to either do a half-assed job or run off after they get a certain deposit. And by using a credit card to, have them invoice you and then you pay it, you're literally giving yourself a layer of protection to make sure that they get the job done and that your money doesn't get wasted. So that's a business aspect. I'll get into a few business expenses and stuff later that you can use. Second would be, if you're not using your credit, you're effectively paying more for everything. And the easiest way to explain that would be, if you guys have heard the term opportunity cost, it would be the sense that you're paying, in reality, there's not actually at the gas station, there is a upcharge on credit cards, but there's not a visible difference in you going to the grocery store, having the same groceries in your cart, walking up to the register, and you get dinged for $100. And then the lady next to you or behind you has the same groceries. She might also get rang up for $100. But what's happening is the cash back and the points and the overall bonuses and all the offers that you're not earning would be a difference of, we'll say $10, $20, right? So if she gets rang up for $90, you're going to be like, that was very odd. And maybe she has something going on, like a one-time thing, and I'll just kind of like blow it by. But imagine if you went to the grocery store again, and that happened again. Or if it was more drastic, because we talk about how points are actually worth a lot more than you think, and it was something like $20 cheaper. Or if you look at a bigger purchase, you're like $200 cheaper. You're like, okay, this is getting really annoying. And imagine that happening every purchase of your life. The opportunity cost can be a lot bigger than you think. So we'll talk about that later on. And then lastly, but honestly, most importantly, it would be that credit can be an emergency resource. And ironically, they're never going to give it to you when you actually need it. So you need to prepare yourself for when you do need it, because it's this funny thing where, if you start showing high utilization and your score tanks, and now you actually need to have a window, a buffer of some money on hand, they're going to be completely scared because they don't want to get caught, holding the shortest stick and basically get left holding the bag. So you need to build yourself up preemptively so that you can prepare for any, unexpected purchase that you might have in life. So even if it's just a normal emergency, say you need repairs for your car, anything pops up family wise, you have the ability to space that gap and then get through it. And for business owners, this is a really big aspect, I believe. So it would be never having to sacrifice any aspect of your life or business for quick cash. So I see a lot of people that, have ventures that are really looking for that Shark Tank type model where they get, this influx of cash at a stake. In the transaction would be they're getting a stake. Go ahead. Oh, I don't know if anyone was talking. Oh, could we mute upon entry? Let me see. I think I can grab that setting. Let me see. There we go. I switched it up, so we're good. Okay, so yeah, so it would be a big aspect, I would say, to be able to finance your own ventures and not have any equity taken from your company. So you don't need to fall for any bad deals because of lack of money. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, we got you now. We lost you for a second before.
Oh, I pressed unmute.
You're good.
Okay, so no, a huge aspect for business owners would be to not get your equity taken, and you'd be able to finance your own ventures without having to make any irrational deals just for a quick cash infusion. So if it makes sense, you can still do those partnerships, but if not, there's no need. That'd be the main thing. You also have the ability to triple down on something when it's going good. The analogy I like to give here is that credit is like lighter fluid. So credit should not be the thing that starts the fire, right? Credit, just like lighter fluid, if you had lighter fluid just stand alone without any spark, without any low flame, it wouldn't do anything. You just spray it on the ground and it would just be a wet ground. Like lighter fluid in itself cannot start the fire, I believe, but lighter fluid can ignite the fire to be way bigger than you could ever imagine. So it's good to have that as a tool on your hip for when things are going really good. And the only problem would be cash flow. So a few cash flow tragedies that I can point out would be, I have had friends in the past that have a really good trendy product that's kind of momentary. So let's say fidget spinners, for example, right? Something that's a fad and you can capitalize on the intense need for that product, but you literally just don't have the cash flow to run the ads, even though on paper they're printing money and they're doubling or tripling your investment, but you just run out of cash on hand. That could be literally the only problem in somebody's business, would be a horrible problem to have. Obviously, you'd still have a good experience, but why not scale to as best you can? Same with payouts. So if payouts are a bi-weekly or monthly, sometimes they're even on net 60, net 90 terms with whoever's paying you out. Like government contractors, a lot of times have to wait like 2 months for their stuff. You need that cash flow on hand so that you can weather, the payouts periods. So if you run out of just money available, you're restricting yourself. And same thing with inventory. So if you literally just had the only problem being like, we need to order more so that we can either get our costs down or have availability so that we can sell more, and that's the only problem, that would be a bad problem to have. Basically drowning in success, basically. So this would be where I think your guys' heads would be at if you're hearing me talk about the benefits of credit and you're thinking, well, if credit is so good, for one, why doesn't everybody talk about it? And then two, what's the deal with the interest and the APR stuff? Because I thought that's the only way that these credit card companies make money. And you're telling me that, they're giving us all these points and incentives and they're letting us use money for free, zero APR and all that, right? So I believe that the aspect that most people think is negative is the thought of, I don't want to be paying interest, right? And most people hear the term APR and they just get scared and they leave it at that. So when in reality, there's a huge misunderstanding on how APR even works and how the companies make their money. So I'm going to explain how it works in the next slide. I personally don't pay any interest on my cards and I only reap the benefits, which can sound like too good to be true, but we're going to break it down and we're going to understand how that works. So before we do, I want to address the question of, well, if we avoid APR, how do they make their money and why would they let us keep using these cards, right? And the reality is, which a lot of people don't know this, the credit card companies make money every time you swipe the card, regardless of when you pay it off or if you include interest or any of that at all. They also make money off the annual fees, right? Like similar to like Costco, which makes like a majority of their money off the memberships that they charge yearly, right? Because they're extremely slim margins on their products in the store. They have that sort of model as well. So American Express makes a ton of money just on the annual fees of their cards, which most people don't know how to maximize. So they're actually making a large profit by the unrealized opportunities from the members. Also, they make money off of affiliate offers. So if you've ever seen, for those of you that do have credit cards, Amex might partner with Marriott or Instacart or a random company and say, if you spend $100, you get 30 off, or you get a specialized boost in kickback when you spend at this particular company, right? Those are offers that they have created in partnership with those companies, and they're getting paid for basically promoting those companies. And then you are getting an extra incentive to go spend with that company, and they can prove that, hey, we increased your sales by this amount. Look how many people that own our cards are using your product now. And then obviously it's a numbers game. Those people will end up being repeat customers, and that will be majorly beneficial to that company. So that's another aspect a lot of people don't know about. But majority of it is literally annual fees and per swipe fees. So we don't actually see the swipe fee on our end. The merchants that you're swiping at, restaurants and businesses and whatever, they get charged that fee for processing, and then that gets issued to the bank that owns that credit card. So they also make money off the interest you hold, obviously, but it's not their only means of income. So I wanted to point that out. So let's explain APR before we move on. And I know this is like, this can sound like intimidating, or this can sound boring, but I really think it needs to be addressed. So APR broken down means annual percentage rate. So, and I wanted to underline annual because it means over the course of a year. So the number that you see, so for example, 24% APR is not the number that you get dinged with if you happen to not pay your balance in full for 1 month, right? Like say you just pay the minimum of, $1,000, you don't get 20% flipped, like it's not like if your stock went up 24%, right? That would be an actual return. This is a over the course of 12 months. So it would be divided by 12 would be the impact that you get on a monthly basis. So yeah, not as insane as you think when you're hearing 24%, you're thinking that's going to happen every month. So APR is divided by 12. So 1/12 of that APR is actually what gets applied to your balance. So if I have 10% APR, like one of my cards does, it's actually less than 1% per month that I would be charged if I held the balance on the balance that I didn't pay off, right? That was due. So 0.83% is the math on that, way less than you think. So let's say I held a balance of $10,000 on a credit card, and then it had a 10.99% APR, which I believe, I'm not sure if this one does. I think my Navy Federal business card does. I would only get charged $91.60 in interest for servicing the debt of the balance that I held of $10,000. So if that was making you more than $100, by being outside of your credit card and being used, then obviously it would make perfect sense. And that's a way better number than what most people would think of if they see 10%, which they would think like $1,000 out of this, 10% of 10,000. So a lot less scary than the other math that you might have been thinking. But of course, we still don't want to pay interest. It could make sense if you're servicing the debt and you're making more money than you're spending. But I want to explain how you can actually hold a balance interest-free for a lot longer than you think. So how can we actually hold a balance for a long time without paying interest? You have to know these two factors. So one, we're going to explain the two types of credit cards that exist, because some can hold for longer. And then we're going to explain the dates that matter, that you need to make sure that your balance is paid off by a certain date, or what amount to pay. So first off, what type of credit cards exist? The two types of cards that you guys might not know that there's even a difference when you go see them. You'll just hear that some people talk about, no limit credit cards, and some people talk about, I got a 10K limit or whatever. Preset limit credit cards are like this credit card that I'm holding, which has a $35,000 limit, and that's hard limit. It's preset. And so if I spend over that amount, it will just, decline, and I'll actually be notified that I'm maxed out. A charge card is unlike the preset limit, where it actually is the flashy, no limit cards that you hear about. They actually do have a sort of limit as well, but it's a very soft ceiling, and it can grow or decrease month to month very easily. So those are good for scaling. And the only caveat of those charge cards is that you have to pay the full balance by the next month. So when that bill is due, you have to pay 100% of that balance. So you can't hold a balance. Like I could hold $35,000 on this card if I wanted to, and actually could, because this one has like 0% for 9 months. So that could work for a preset limit card, but for a charge cards, that's the only caveat. So you have a higher ceiling, but they know that you have to pay it all back. So that's why they're a little more flexible with you. So for people that have businesses that just have a high amount of spend, but they know they're going to get paid out and they're going to be able to pay it off, that could be a really good opportunity. So the dates that matter, 2 dates you have to remember. If you're taking notes, definitely look into these. The statement date has a few different names. Some people call it the reporting date, closing date, or statement closing date. They're all meaning the same thing. A lot of times that misinformation hops around. There's only two types: the due date and the statement closing date. So we're going to talk about them. So the statement date, and I use this calendar here to show you like an actual example, so you can look at it and screenshot it if you want. It's the day that your current billing cycle, so the purchases that you're currently making within this month-long window, is when it closes. That's the nickname we give it, is the statement date, but it's really the statement closing date, because there's an open date and a close date, but the close date is the most important. So on the closing date, your card's balances will be screenshotted and sent to the credit bureaus to report to affect your utilization on your credit profile, right? So if you have $1,000 limit and then you swipe for $1,000 in the middle of the month and it's maxed out, it will not report maxed out unless you don't pay it on the statement closing date, and it goes by, and then they screenshot the balance and they send it off. Now that's going to be your quote unquote balance for like a 30-day period until the next statement date when they get a new screenshot. So, but if you use that to your advantage and you pay off your balance before that statement date hits, now you can actually have a card that's been maxed out the whole month, but then paid off by the time you're supposed to. And then you can actually look like, oh, he's only got 1% utilization or 4% utilization, whatever it is, because you're using the date to your advantage and not just getting hit with it. I know a lot of people that pay their balances off and then they're like, hey, why isn't my credit score reflecting the balance that I actually have now? It's $0 or it's a few bucks, and I still have like, thousands of dollars showing up in my report. It's because they don't understand the statement close date for each of their cards. So they can be different. They don't all have to be on the 1st and the 31st, right? So you have to go onto your statement. Usually it's in the top right or the bottom right, and you got to see this date here at the end of this little period that they give you. And so in this case, it would be February 18th. So I made a mark here of the close date. And so you can make purchases all throughout this period, but the real date that matters, that's going to be reported to your credit bureaus, you're going to see an increase or decrease in score, is going to be what the balance is on this date right here. So that's just a visual representation. Next would be the due date. So that's literally just one day. Usually it's 3 days before your statement date. So I can almost guess your due date or your statement date, vice versa. If you give me one of them, I could say, okay, it's most likely 3 or 5 days before. So this is the day your minimum payment is due for your credit card bill that's currently, under this credit card. So it's the lowest amount you can pay to keep in good standing. So you want to always, I recommend, set auto pay to at least the minimum payment. That way you never go delinquent, but then you're going to want to at least manually pay as much as you can so that you don't get charged interest on the remainder. So it does not avoid interest, just making the minimum payment. Interest will be applied to whatever is left. So in this example, $84.01 would be remaining if you just paid the minimum payment of $15.99. And so that amount would have interest applied to it. And then whatever APR the card has, so we'll just run with the 10.99% APR number, that would be 76 cents, not much, but it's just going to be applied to the amount that's remaining, not the amount you paid. And so we're putting it all together so we can see a bigger picture of what a statement looks like. Now I can easily check out the dates and say, okay, I got to pay at least $15.99. I'll probably do that today as soon as I get the bill. Boom. Now I know by February 18th, or really by the due date as well. So by March 15th, I have to pay the remainder of the balance if I don't want to pay interest on that balance. But I'm already in the clear from getting a late payment if I just pay the $15.99 right now. Keep moving. So there's a calendar view of both. So this is talking about what's due today. This right here, the closing date, is going to give you the bill for next month, and it's going to screenshot and send it to the bureaus. So they're always 3 to 5 days apart. To avoid interest, you pay your last statement balance in full by the upcoming due date. And to keep utilization low, we'll talk about utilization in a minute, you make sure your card balance is between 1 to 4%, ideally, of the limit that you have. So if we have $1,000 limit, we want to be at, what is it, $100 to $400. No, that's 10%. So $10 to $40 on the statement closing date, ideally like a day or two before. So a side note, especially in the beginner space, I see the number 30% utilization thrown around. That's like a C- in the credit space. So you don't want to just be barely on the edge of being like high risk, because you're already being looked at as on the verge. So you don't want to be doing that. Ideally, you should have 10% or less. I particularly say 1 to 4% if you want to be ready to go for funding, and if you want a good, they call it a look back period, when the banks look at your history. If you're always within the 1 to 4% range, that's going to be the best results that you would get when you go for new credit cards and new limits. So credit card companies monitor your profile even after your approval. So like what I was just saying, a lot of people think they're in the clear after they get the approval and that they can hold high balances. And even if it shows up, they're not going to get any cards closed down, especially right now, you guys, with the economic conditions that we're under. These cards are going to be cracking down on limits, issuing financial reviews, or closing your account completely if they're doing or if they're seeing activity that you're doing that they don't like. So just make sure that you always stay within healthy parameters and you're not going crazy just because you thought the approval already happened and you're in the green. So they have always the opportunity to do whatever they want with your credit account. So this is like a grand scheme example of how the purchases go throughout the month. So it answers the question of how long can you theoretically hold a balance without being charged interest. So around 55 days, if you hug the statement date. So if you made a purchase like right after the 30th, it's not even going to be on your bill, right, due until the next statement date. And then you're going to have that next due date. So you have literally almost 2 months, so 55 days. But let's just use it from the example that we have on the timeline. So let's just say you get approved and then you magically had a card in your hand on the 1st, right? And then around the 3rd or the 4th, you made a purchase of $100, right? The due date that's coming up, the 25th, which will end up being like your date that you always look for to be your due date, it's not currently going to have anything due because you just got the card. So there'll be no minimum payment that you have to make and no statement balance that you have to actually pay. But what happens is that gets finalized on the 30th, we'll say in this case. And so a screenshot of your credit report happens, that gets sent to the bureaus. And now this $100 balance that you used the card for will actually get moved and be due on your next due date. So now that statement balance is going to show the next month. And then that minimum payment is going to be the thing that you need to do to not be delinquent. And so within this month, the second one coming up, you will be able to spend whatever you want, technically $20, $35, and that won't be a part of this current statement balance you have to pay to avoid interest. So, but then on the next statement date, that will close. So depending on whatever you paid out of this $100, ideally you want to pay the whole $100. Now you will have a $55 statement balance that will now go into the next month, right? And you can pay that early if you want. So you could just pay it down to zero, all of it. So 155, you could pay that off, before the due date. You're just going to have another $0 statement balance that next month. So you can use that to your advantage to know like, what do I want? Do I want a balance to show up and be due? Or do I want to just pay it all off and have a month where there's actually zero showing up? We usually recommend between 1% to 4% of a balance showing, but it doesn't have to be a balance that you're getting dinged interest with, right? So people get that mixed up as well, is they think that, well, if people are telling me to always hold a balance, that means I always have to be paying interest on my balances because I'm never paying it off in full. No, you pay off the statement balance in full, and then you put a new purchase on it, and that one is not due to actually be paid, so it's not going to get applied interest. So that's why I want to make sure you guys have clarity on would be new purchases versus last month's purchases. So anything that you make within that current billing period is not due. You're not going to get dinged with interest. Now it would affect your utilization, but that's all. So you can not worry about new purchases as long as they're within healthy utilization marks. So you can have a balance showing and will not be charged interest as long as the balance is from new purchases made inside the current billing cycle that has not closed yet. So essentially, if you want to think of it in this way, sometimes it makes more sense to people if they think that credit lags by 1 month in terms of what I have to pay. So the things that I swipe right now, I don't have to pay till next month. And the same thing, I'm paying last month's purchases this month. That's what it is. So a wrap up of this section, paying correctly would be that you pay your minimum on the due date at least to stay in good standing. Always do that. That's why I recommend auto pay set to the minimum. And then paying your statement balance on the due date to avoid interest, and also make sure you have a low utilization, right? Just because you have a balance showing on the card doesn't mean any interest will be applied. I just want to make sure that sticks with you guys. So eventually you want to move on to business credit cards, because the beauty of business credit cards is they don't show utilization, right? So 99.9% of business credit cards won't give you that problem of, okay, I paid my statement balance off, but I made new purchases. What do I do with those new purchases? Should I pay them early because they're going to affect my utilization, or can I just freely spend on the card? And so for most, I wrote down 2 here that don't apply. So don't look at any business cards with Capital One or Discover to give you this solution. But almost all business credit cards do not report to your personal credit, meaning you can hold balances for much longer without any impact to your credit. And you can have full confidence that, hey, if I know I'm going to pay it back, and I know I'm going to pay it back before I get charged interest, I can rack up, technically have a maxed out credit card as long as I'm going to pay it off and not be delinquent. And that will be completely fine. I won't see a score decrease or anything like that. So in order to enjoy the business side though, which is the end goal, and I'll break down, can you be a business credit card holder even without a crazy LLC setup? We definitely need our personal credit profile well built before we get into the business side of things. Side note, answering that question I just mentioned, can you get a business card without an LLC? Definitely yes. I've had people get $10,000, $15,000 limits with sole props completely using their social security number and not using their EIN and literally just using their home address and don't even need a DBA, literally just their first, middle, last names, right? Also, stated revenue would be most common on your 0 to 50K limit business credit cards. So all of that can be done super seamlessly, especially if you have a relationship with the bank. I want to mention that, yeah, this is a whole other world. So I want to make sure that you do it correctly. But it starts with having a personal credit foundation. I just wanted to let you know that it's possible with as best of a credit profile as you can get going up to that. So if you guys want to screenshot this is what I would consider ideal credit criteria for all Americans. So even if you're not into the credit hacking, travel hacking type space, everyone should have these marks met, after a few years after turning 18, so you can actually get your own credit cards. You want to have between 3 to 5 personal credit cards that you own, that you applied for, so not authorized users. I'm not sure I don't think we're going to cover that in this presentation, but if you've heard of authorized users or AU trade lines or piggybacking, that would be what I'm talking about. And those do not count in this 3 to 5 personal credit cards that you want under your belt. So ideally, bank issued by tier 1 banks with limits of 5 to 10,000 each. So real quick, the tier 1, there's only 4 tier 1 banks in the United States, and that would be at the top in this exact order: Chase, B of A, Citi, and Wells Fargo. Chase being the top of the top, so like the Ivy League version of the accounts. That's the one you would want to be friends with, because if they see a 5K limit from Chase that's granted to you as a primary account, that looks way better than any rinky-dink account that you can get from any of the thousands of other institutions way below the list, or the ones that are completely pay to play. There's even been some, ones that have gotten busted for, just pay a certain amount of money and will report a certain trade line. For one, that's illegal. Secondly, that's not even a good quality account. So banks will literally look at that and see, we see this account on everyone's profiles and it's not even actually worth anything. So they just discredit it, or it makes you look worse. Also, you want to have 1 to 2 installment loans on your account. So those are the 2 types of credit accounts would be credit cards would be revolving accounts. The other products like loans would be installment accounts. So student loans, personal loans, houses or cars are all forms of installment loans. Most people end up getting their 1 or 2 installment loans being their house or their car, right? Or both. These should not affect your debt to income like drastically, to where they're, you have 90% left still on the credit profile. But so what we do, if you guys have heard me talk about the pledge loan hack, I have a podcast episode. It's my first one that, like, 26 minutes in, I talk about the benefits of the pledge loan hack. It's a secured loan. So similar to a secured credit card where you give them some collateral to start up a limit, which I don't recommend for that being part of your 3 to 5 personal credit card setup. I don't want to go too deep into like the starting from scratch model, but the pledge loan hack gives you the benefit of being able to pay that down, and then the principal of that security deposit gets released back to you. So you can have this crazy to understand type from a glance kind of money loop where you don't actually have your money locked up if you choose to pay them back towards that principal. So it will get released to you as you paid off, which is a beautiful scenario. Not too many secured loans operate in that manner. So the best institution that we go to for that is Navy Federal. But off the top of my head, I know DCU does it, Penn Fed does it, Space Coast Credit Union does it. I believe Andrews Federal Credit Union does it as well. So if you guys want to basically start that on your credit profile, if you don't have any current installment loans, you guys can just DM me on Instagram or text the number that I'll give you guys at the end of the presentation if you want. Starting from scratch usually isn't something that I would gatekeep at all. I feel like everyone needs this to just be adequate in being ready to finance whatever they need and have good rates. Just anybody should get to these marks. So you want to average age on your credit history of 2 years or more. That would be ideally all your credit accounts are 2 years older. But it could be that you started a few in the beginning and those got really old, and then they average out with the other new accounts, because you're not always going to get a house, a car, and 3 credit cards, or you're not really going to all at the same time. You want to keep your inquiries low, so only apply for things when you know you're going to get approved. Don't be shotgunning yourself around at dealerships or for credit products that you know you can't get approved for. We're going to talk about why pre-qualification tools are really useful. And then keep your utilization at 1 to 4%, which I already talked about. And then, of course, no negatives, so no late payments, no collections, no charge-offs, nothing like that, to have the best credit criteria possible. These are the tier 1 banks that I was talking about. In your baseline setup, these should basically be the cards that you have, because this would look like you have the highest credit worthiness with the banks that are the most big in the space, right? And the ones that are a little more strict. So we consider any of these credit cards here that make sense on paper with their annual fees and upgrade and downgrade paths that you can consider to be keeper cards. So I always do a lot of research with my cards to make sure that if I want to upgrade in the space and, like, let's say, use more travel benefits, but I'm going to get a higher annual fee, that I have the ability to just upgrade into that if I want it, but then also be able to downgrade into a low annual fee or no annual fee credit card and just product change up and down that ladder if I want to, instead of, closing a credit card, opening a new one. So now I lost all the age of that credit card that I originally started with, right? And it just messes up your long-term game plan, especially when you want to be lean and only work with a handful of credit cards and not have like 29 cards, which I think is what I'm at right now. So you got to understand the long-term upgrade and downgrade path. That's huge. And the cards that I show you guys in this presentation, I'll definitely let you know which ones those are. So closing a credit card, I get this question sometimes. Just to let you know, you will lose all of the age of that account when you close it, showing on your credit report. So that average age will drop. And if this is an old card, it will have a majorly negative effect on your credit score. And if you have very few cards, like only 3 to 5, this will, be even worse because you're averaging it out over a small number of accounts versus a large in-depth account profile. So very rarely do I recommend to close a card. That's, again, why I recommend that you do downgrades or product changes into something that makes more sense to sock drawer, is a nickname that we give it. So where you can literally make it make sense to keep the account open, put a purchase on it every 3 to 6 months or a subscription, throw it in the sock drawer, never think about it again, but know that it's still building up your credit profile. And then retention offers are great because sometimes they can justify an annual fee. If you get stuck with something that's maybe, we'll say, a $95 annual fee, you can sometimes call in. And if you use that card, most of the time, they're just going to say, hey, we can consider waiving this annual fee this year since you use the card, or we're going to give you a points bonus and like a new challenge or something that can incentivize you to use that card, maybe a 0% APR offer. There's a lot of things that they can offer that just because a lot of people don't ask, they don't get. So always make sure you ask about retention offers. Even if you're not considering closing the card, you can literally pump fake and get a lot of benefits just from saying, hey, I'm thinking about closing this card because I'm not getting as much benefit from it. They want your business because they know that your spend is limited. They know that you're going to go to a different company if you don't spend with them. So they want to keep you. So that's something I wanted to point out. Score versus report. I want to address this real quick, just for everybody. Similar to like a live stream that I was doing last night, the question that I got was, I was showing off the built credit card, which I'll talk about in this presentation. But someone asked me, what score do I need to get this card? And it made me realize that there's like a huge misconception with the score mattering or not mattering. And the reality is the score does not matter. So someone can come to me with a 730. And if I say, hey, this credit card needs a 720 or above, they could think they're in the clear and then get denied and then be completely clueless as to what happened. Because what's really happening is under the hood of that score, the reports is being looked at and the quality of the accounts, right? So the utilization, the type of accounts they are, the limits, how long they've had them, all those details are being considered more than just the score, right? Because the score can be manufactured. So you can literally get an AU that's 40 years old with a 20K credit limit, pop that on your credit report, and you'll see your score shoot up by 100 points if you're in the 500s, 600s. And you'll think that you did so much progress. And a lot of people take advantage of that, of the lack of knowledge that people have, and they'll charge them $1,000 to get that AU trade line put on for 60 days. And then think that they're doing something beneficial for their credit and go apply for something and then get denied. Because and the reality is it may be used to work a decade ago, like pre-recession times, right? Now the banks literally have full knowledge of what the difference of an authorized user versus a primary account is. So, and it literally says it on your credit report. If you see the account pop up on your score will jump, or on your report, your score will jump. But you will literally see it says authorized user account right under the report when the account posted. So does not have as big of an impact as you think. I've seen people with 680s, 670s get approved for higher, better limits, even with thinner profiles, just because they have a right quality of accounts and their actual report details are good. So that's the under the hood of the report, or sorry, of the score. Sorry to mix up the terms. But what's also funny is if you guys want to go pull up your official credit reports, right? Not scores. You can go to annualcreditreport.com and you can literally get a free copy from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can get it once a week. They're going to send you the official copy with soft pulls and hard pulls all included. And you're not going to see a score on there. And a lot of people are confused because they're like, oh, I wanted to see my score too. And this is all the bureaus that I know of. Why don't they show me the score? That's because the score is created by FICO, the Fair Isaac company, completely separate, completely to the side. It's their own KFC recipe that they gave to the bank so that they can quickly at a glance determine if someone's creditworthy or not. But then they do their deep digging during the underwriting of their credit accounts. So it's really just to be able to, pay FICO so they can get a quick glance at somebody and completely rule out the 500, 600 credit scores and then go to the 7s and above. But if they go to the 7s and 8s, the 800 club, whatever, you can have an 850 fully manufactured by AUs, and it's not going to actually give you the depth that the banks want to see, because they're just going to see that it's completely blown up and fake, and then they're still going to deny you, and you would be completely lost because you just might have paid a ton of people for AUs and not gotten anywhere. So wanted to point that out. The example that I give is score is like your GPA, report is like your transcript, right? If you're looking at a school example. So if I tell you that I have a 3.3 GPA, you might be like, okay, he's decent at school, right? 2.0 is like barely passing. So you're like, okay, 4.0 is straight A's. You're like, 3.3 is good. But what if I was, going to a job interview and they wanted to know my school history, and I said, yeah, I have a 3.3. They're not going to be able to necessarily discern like what I'm good at or what I'm bad at. What if this job needed a math skill to be very proficient at, and I had an F in math, and that was the class that was causing my GPA to be in the low 3 point something. That would be very important for them to know. So what they would do is they'd say, okay, he's got a 3.3, so he's pretty adequate. Let's go check his transcript. And the transcript will say he got a, F in calculus, and he took this class in this building with this teacher this year at this semester at this college, and all the details of that report is going to be right there for them, instead of just looking at a number and trying to come up with a big decision off of that, which they're not going to do. So score is just for the glance. Report is what's under the hood, what actually matters. And that's why someone with real credit, so real good quality banks with maybe a mortgage and a car loan, and it has 3 years of history, but only has a 680, will outperform somebody with a 750, but it's completely fabricated. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, after I get a sip of water, we're going to talk about the points world and how you could be missing out on thousands. But I had to get that out of the way because I felt like those were some crazy fundamental principles that you had to understand about the credit space, because there's so much out here that it revolves around that same you don't know what you don't know. And then also you hear something once, it was misinformation, and then you ran with it and you thought that 30% was an okay utilization that you should be having. And then now you're wondering why you're not getting the results that you want with your approvals and with your APRs that you're getting. So just wanted to clear that up. Hopefully that helped. While I take a water break, I'll see if I can get ones in the chat for interaction. I want to see if that made sense to everybody. So ones if you got it, twos if you still have questions about it, write down your questions. We're going to do it in the Q&A. I see John, Jeff, cool. Steve, done right, cool. Perfect. All right. Cool. All right. So close the comments. We're going to back to the presentation here. So we're going to talk about the points world. So what is, long story short, the hackable event that happens with the points world of credit cards and the travel hack world, right? And so long story short, that would be transferring your credit card points and the currency that they are over to travel partners and getting those tickets or hotel stays. And it's the value that can happen when you transfer from the credit card world to the travel world, because the points ecosystems are different. So it might be extremely valuable to have 50,000 points with the airline, but it might be only worth 1/10 of the value to go get those points, 50,000 points on the credit card side. So if you can move them, which they have they give us the opportunity to do, we can get 10x the value. So I've literally seen, and you guys will see, I got an 18x multiple on my points for a particular trip that I'll break down for you guys. But normally I shoot for at least 3 cents per point on my points. And normally the banks will only give you 1. So I'm aiming for at least triple, but I can bank on 10 to 15 times more value when I'm using it for airlines and when I'm going for the big experiences like business class, first class, stuff like that. So this is the first example. Some of you guys saw me in Spain a few months ago. I took a flight from LAX to Spain via Air France, and I'm gonna break down how I did it. So this was the business class flight. I actually booked 2 business class tickets for my parents. It was their first time flying business class, first time on a lie flat seat. They enjoyed it a lot, and they were just like mind blown as to like this was completely zero out of pocket, and it was a cool sight to see. So the flight was 55,000 miles due to a promo award, which is what Air France gives out on the first of the month every month to issue kind of like the flash deals for the month. So they'll show you the destinations, they'll show you the type of class of ticket that's in, and then they'll show you how much it costs. And those are the extremely discounted rates. So this was an extremely discounted rate of a flight. So $55K for business class. That business class flight was worth $7,000 retail. And I had to screenshot it because I was like, that's crazy. And the Amex transfer portal was giving a 25% transfer boost if you use your Amex points and transfer them to Air France. So for every 1,000 points I had in Amex points, I could get 1,250 points if I transfer them to Air France. So I only actually needed 38,000 points from my Amex account to get this $55,000 or 55,000 point mark, which they call miles, right? Air France will call them Air France miles. But yeah, so that came out to be an 18.54 cents per point valuation on my points. So I literally got 18x more value out of my points versus what the credit card company would give me. That credit card company, Amex, would have only given me, if I was lucky, $380 cash back. I say if I was lucky because Amex doesn't even give 1 cent per point. A lot of times they give 0.75 cents per point unless you have the Charles Schwab Platinum that gives you 1.1. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. That was like a major highlight for me, and I'm glad I got to do it. This is an economy example. So same route. I took economy for less points, but the value wasn't there as much. So if I was being a penny pincher, which I was at the time, because I was like, I just want to see what the difference in economy and business was like. And I kind of was hoping I get upgraded, but I didn't. I went ahead and got the economy version. So it was 14,500 miles. It was supposed to be 18, but I had that transfer boost. So I only had to spend 14.5 and I got that 18K miles mark hit. So it was still a $933 flight. So I still got a 6.4 cents per point, which is great, right? Remember that baseline is 3 cents per point. But my parents was way better on paper. So mine was just less points quantity wise. So I just wanted to point that out. Second example, and this is huge because they're now back. Emirates first class flights are now back to being points available. They were kind of closed during COVID. And so this is a big freaking deal. This is the actual cash price of the Emirates first class flight. So if you guys want to look it up, I believe it's the A380 aircraft. Look up a flight from JFK to Dubai and look at the experience and all the course meals and all the free champagne and the shower and the on-plane bar that you can go up and go drink at, and just the whole experience, and how that's, for most people, a complete once-in-a-lifetime experience, if that, right? But most people can never fork out $15,000 for a one-way flight, right? And Amex would have asked for 1.2 million points from me, which again is a once-in-a-lifetime mark. Most people will probably get 1 million points in their life, right? If they don't know the hacks. So it was asking for that much for this flight. They were trying to, show that they were the good guy because I had the platinum card, and they were trying to say that they gave me a $2,000 or $3,000 discount. But I said, no, thanks. I'm going to go use those Amex points, transfer them to Emirates and get Emirates miles because they have a partnership, and use 87% less points and only have to pay 163,500 miles compared to the 1.2 million that I would have had to pay otherwise. So the $838, which is basically fuel taxes that you can't get around on a cross-Atlantic flight to Dubai, even if you just said, screw it, I really don't want to come out of pocket, I want to use the rest of the points at a more shitty cents per point redemption rate, and do the 1 cent per point redemption and get 83,800 charged for this cash remainder, it would still only cost a total of 247,000 points, which is 1/5, so 20% of what they were asking for on the Amex portal, which is one of the main reasons why we don't use the Amex portals. We don't use any of the native things that they try to market to you. We just have the one switch that we do, which is move it directly over to the airlines that we want to use it for. But we got to make sure that obviously there's a deal before we transfer them. So, but it's best to keep those points in the Amex wallet, in the Chase wallet, before you know exactly where you need to go. you make the transfer. Usually it takes like, it's instant or it takes like a day or two, and then you book the flight that you want. So why do the banks make points? You just saw me show some crazy redemption. So you'd think, why are they letting this happen, right? Mainly it's to incentivize you to do your limited amount of spending with their products versus competitors. So there's a healthy competition aspect of the fact that we can freely choose whatever company we want to work with. And they know that usually for people, credit cards are a lifelong decision, and you're going to be spending a lot of money on that card throughout the course of your life. So the point system draws in new customers to be a part of the ecosystem. And a lot of times people want to be simple, so they just want one company to deal with. And it also retains current people, so it keeps them incentivized to keep using those cards in the long term and become loyal to that program. So why don't they tell you how to get the max value out of the points like I just did, right? Common sense would be, why would they, right? They want you to feel like you're getting value with the points and compare it to other companies, but they don't want you to actually get the most juice out of them. They prefer that you burn your points for cheap, but feel like you're getting a value. So they make it most convenient and most mentioned and most advertised to redeem your points in suboptimal ways. So paying your statement balance with the points, buying gift cards to give to people. I've seen, like, I even marketed way back. It was like a 25% boost on buying Apple products. So I bought some AirPods, and I was like, that just sounds cool, not to come out of pocket to get some AirPods. But it was in reality a bad cents per point redemption rate. So I could have, opportunity cost, I was missing out on the 10x or 15x redemption that I could have got with those points. So we avoid all of these basically entirely. So the best use of points would be for aspirational travel. So the once in a lifetime stuff that you can enjoy out of pocket, and the feeling of not actually paying for an experience that most people don't even get to experience ever is the craziest thing. Like I can't even explain the feeling. Like I was posting it on my story a day or two ago, that the Park Hyatt in New York that I was in. And just every time I watch that video, I'm like, I can't believe I did that with other people paying $3,000, $4,000 for the same room, and I didn't even feel it. Like it was literally off of the knowledge that I had to get the bonus, to then book it and then go experience it in real life. And it was just like, it was insane. So the way that I summarize it is, you want the highest level experiences at the lowest cost, 0 being the best cost, right? And that's where the high cents per point comes from. So business class, first class flights, 5-star hotels, all that. Also, you might be looking at that and be like, well, I don't want to travel, or I'm not trying to travel in the next year or two. I'm still building up, my career. I'm still trying to, stay at home base. If you're not currently avid about travel, you can still look at these points as like a piggy bank and build up these points so that you, when you're ready to travel, will have a ton of ammo basically to go apply to good travel experiences. And that would just give you like a nice stretch of not having to go out of pocket for good quality travel. Or the aspect of whether you need to travel by necessity, like something that you didn't know was going to come up happens, and then you can use those points in exchange for, what the money that you would have spent, or gifting the travel to others. An example that I can think of when I was actually doing a travel hack while gifting it to somebody was, somebody out here needed, I think their mom had not booked a New Year's Eve hotel here in Vegas, which is where I'm at currently. And they were like, dude, they're all $1,000 a night. I know you know your stuff. I'm coming to you. Like, what can we come up with? She wants to be on the Strip. It's like a week or two out. And I was like, all right, well, let's look at my favorite company, Hyatt, and let's check the points rates, because Hyatt is the one that's the most loyal to the points rates not going above a certain amount. So even when they're price gouging on the cash side of things, Hyatt will stay true to their points categories. And I was able to get a Hyatt hotel on the Strip, I think it was MGM Grand, for $250 that night, and everything out there was going for $1,000 minimum. And then because I had gold status, they had the opportunity to get upgraded into the suite, which was like a $1,600 value. And that was just because I knew how to use those points and I had those stacked up. So I still think there's a lot of utility for holding these points because they don't expire. They're literally just a benefit of you doing your normal spend that you were going to do and keeping that on the side, just building up so that you can use it however you want. So if you don't plan to travel for the next year or two, but you want to stack them, or if you eventually want to cash them into a brokerage account, you can do that as well. So like the Amex Charles Schwab Platinum that I talked about, which you can actually product change into, so you don't have to get the Charles Schwab Platinum immediately, but I would recommend that you did if you were choosing between platinum cards. There's the vanilla the Vanilla Platinum, which is just a normal Platinum, Charles Schwab Platinum, and the Morgan Stanley Platinum. I would recommend that you get the Charles Schwab, but you can also, I'll talk about it, go from the Amex Gold into the Platinum and then the Charles Schwab Platinum. So there's a whole staircase, right? But just letting you guys know that that's actually a thing. Charles Schwab Platinum card lets you transfer your points at a 1-to-1 rate into your Charles Schwab brokerage account. So not sure if you could do it directly into like an IRA or anything like that for like tax-free gains, but I don't know much about that side of things, but I know that you can immediately just send it in and it's considered a rebate. So it's not actually considered cash. You're not going to get a 1099 INT interest form. It's literally like a coupon that, you know, based on your spending, you're getting a little bit as a discount, not a payment. So you could effectively have a position in something and invest in something at no cost to you. I thought that was pretty cool. So this is a photo of the property that I was actually talking about that I used 40,000 points for, which is usually like half of what you can get from a bonus from a lot of these cards. And I'll show you the table in a little bit. I got this completely for free and it was like a crazy experience. I wanted to show you guys a video of that and you guys should be able to hear it as well. But I've seen the points go down to as low as 35,000 points per night. Real quick, if you guys want to write this down, a great resource that I actually haven't even posted anywhere for finding points availability for properties, especially ones that are hard to find. You want to find, or you want to go on the website called Max My Point. So singular, I'm gonna write that down in the chat real quick, maxmypoint.com. And you can use that to get a 30-day overview of points availability for a property. So you don't have to guess and try to come up with reservations and get told that there's no points availability. You don't have to call in and ask them if they have any and they won't tell you or anything like that. You can literally use that as a free resource to plug in the, we'll say Park Hyatt, New York, and see exactly when they have the points availabilities and how low they're going to get. So let me just show you this real quick because I thought it was cool. I mean, like I said, it was insane. Let me know if you guys can hear it. I'm gonna pop up the chat. It's only like 30 seconds, so it won't be too long. But one's in the chat if you can hear it. Crazy experience. Like Max was there for it. Like it was insane. I know him and my buddy Caden were actually able to see the room and it was just the dopest experience ever. To be able to like wake up, the housekeeping had already had my slippers right there next to my bed with the towel rolling out. There was like therapeutic music playing. They gave you like anything you could ever want in that room. Just insane. Like the view, the space to have that in Midtown. So I would say that was a great use of my points versus the $400 cash that I would have gotten otherwise, right? Because that was a $3,400 room that I got by redeeming the 40,000 points for a $1,000 room and then getting upgraded to the suite, the residential suite. So the price you see here was for the base room and I got the suite upgrade because of my status. So not going to talk about status too much in this presentation, but there's a method to the madness. So just know that you should stack up points and then use them as best you can when you have statuses and you have a good understanding of it all. So I got those points in a combination of all these cards. I actually have all 4 of these cards now because the business ones don't show up on my personal, so I can get plenty of them. But I have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which I now upgraded to the Reserve, and that gave me a 100,000 point bonus when I actually signed up for it. It was back in the day when I was really preaching it on my story, and they were about to expire, and now they're at 60,000 bonus points for the card, but it's still a great keeper card, which I'll talk about in the starting lineup that I'll give to you guys. The other 3 are 90,000, 90,000, and 100,000. That's a collective 340,000 in Chase points that you could have just with 1 personal and 3 business, which is totally doable. And me personally, I think I have a 25, 25, and a 10 K limit. So that's like 55,000 in business credit limits at 0%. They were for the period that I got them. So it was great. This is actually a screenshot of my points wallet in Amex. So right now I've been building up to this. This is pretty to look at. I want to get to 1 million, but we'll see if I end up spending it before then. Right now, it would be worth, if I went to transfer it to Charles Schwab directly into my brokerage account, so just cash, it would be $6,987 worth of points, but worth in travel at 3 cents per point, which is a baseline requirement for me to redeem at. That would be $19,000 in travel that I'm looking at right there, right? And imagine if I got more towards the 10 cent or 15 cent per point redemption, it would be insane. Like 10 cents per point, that would be $63,000 in travel. Essentially, it's crazy. So bare minimum to me though, that's worth at least 20 grand in travel. So I'm going to keep that close to me. But as a producer rather than a consumer, so talking to our business people out there, which everyone should be, in my opinion, creating a one-person business model of the value that they have, extracting it, putting it onto YouTube, social media, developing a community that actually sees the value and serving them. That will give you the most ROI that you can have when you're just living your life and trying to give value the whole time. So me as a producer of content and not just consuming it, a ton, I want to document the experiences that I'm going to have with those points and then share value on how I did it and how they can do it too with an online community. I want to teach them how to do it themselves. And I want to make a huge return by actually doing this to lifestyle market, because this is going to let people that, don't have a familiarity with me or a trust with me be able to see that I exist, right? Because it's fun, cool, flashy content, and I was going to do it anyways. And it's going to get me leads because those people are going to be interested in, hey, what's this reel I saw about this guy taking a free first class flight to Dubai? And now they're going to go down the rabbit hole, check my YouTube out, podcast out, understand the value that's there on the financial literacy side, but then the cool, flashy travel stuff. And then they're going to eventually, either opt in into something that I have, like an offer or a service, or at least just be impacted by it so they can actually go get their own credit set up and run with it for the rest of their life. And that's an impact that I can give to the world at no cost to me, because those videos would just be out there and that's how they would have found me. So I was going to do it anyways. In my opinion, this is like a flywheel aspect. So everything you do is just amplified. If I was already going to take the trip and I was only going to have 100 people watch my story, now I could have 10,000, 20,000 people watch my story and be impacted by it, by seeing that it's possible and then thinking, this is where he came from. Some people know me for 6-7 years on my Instagram, right? And know that he built himself up to that point to be able to do that. And it was because of stuff he knew, not because he's anything different than me, people I went to high school with or whatever, right? Can see that and immediately know, especially if you look at the videography, side of my life. And like that, I didn't know anything about credit or business at all. I wish I would have known it now looking back, because I'm like, if someone would have gave me a $25,000 0% business card when I was like working with A-list artists, I could have been like, dude, I can finance the gear that I need. I can rent all the equipment, the sets, the whatever, to go pull off projects and put myself at a higher pedestal to them. So that knowledge, I didn't know what I didn't know. Now can be used for anything, right? But I personally believe that building a personal brand and selling info products and having a community based on those info products is the best flywheel ever, and it will amplify any ROI that you have on any activities that you do. So now we're going to go into the lineup. So this is answering the question of how can I get into the points game? So these are the best travel credit cards for everybody in the US to just deal with very simply and get solid quality points and have a justifiable setup. So it's going to start not in any particular order, but I'm going to start talking about the Built card because it's the new kid on the block. It's actually backed by Wells Fargo. So it's a good quality card. It's in that tier 1 realm of credit cards. There's no bonus at the moment, but they have a killer setup right now. The referral bonus is great. You can go up to 2 million points in referrals, even if you don't own the card. So that's pretty cool. I was actually giving the link out before I had the card myself, but it's crazy that it really rivals the Sapphire Preferred. It's got 3x on dining, 2x on travel, and 1x on everything. But this has the X factor of being able to pay your rent, and actually in more simple ways than you think. The landlord doesn't even have to understand, what card or what company you're using to pay him. They will literally send a check out to wherever you want, with the name of whoever it needs to be, and that person will get the check just as simply as if you wrote a check yourself. And give it to that person. So it's crazy. You can do ACH, you can do checks, you can do cash, anything you want. The built setup will let you earn points on it and also get it for no fees. So most people's biggest expense of the month will actually be able to get points involved with the Built card. So that's super cool. I have the link to the Built card in my bio, and I posted something about it earlier. I want to drop a podcast about it, but I've been lagging on that. So coming out soon. But yeah, it's a really good card. I would recommend in the top 3 for everybody. And I don't normally say that about random, cards that I see that are new on the block. So I was pretty hesitant, but once I looked into this card, I was like, wow, the points are actually up to par with Chase and Amex. And that rental feature is crazy. And the points back categories are there. Plus, it's a no annual fee credit card. So it just makes it's a no-brainer, right? Even if you only had one card out of this setup, I would probably recommend that you go with the Built card because it's no annual fee and it's with Wells Fargo still tier 1. So yeah, second would be, again, no particular order. I'll tell you how to apply for these safely, but we're just going to break these down. Amex Gold, which has a $250 annual fee, but to me, it is a $10 annual fee because they give you $240 in free food. So you're going to get $10 a month with Uber that you can actually use for Uber Eats or a ride. If you ever take an Uber ride, it will just be in your Uber wallet and it will deduct $10 from that. Also, there is an opportunity to go with Grubhub, Cheesecake Factory, or a couple other restaurants for another $10 a month. So it's $20 a month times 12. That's your $240. I get full value from that because I would just literally use, one meal a month on Grubhub and Uber Eats, and there's my, my $20 a month that I would have most likely already did anyway. So for me, it makes the most sense to justify that annual fee. Plus, it has great kickback categories. 4x back on not just restaurants and food delivery, but also groceries. So none of the other cards qualify groceries in their dining category. So that's why I really like this card. If you do groceries, instead of just, doing takeout all year round, then this would be great for you. Also, a slept on opportunity with this card is the kickback category of 3x on airlines, which most people don't even think of because most people hear that it's a food card and they run with it. So yeah, 3x on airlines when booked directly is really cool. And then a nice possible bonus of 90,000 MR points for 4K in 6 months, which is less than $1,000 per month, right? Because you have a 6-month runway, which is really cool. There's a pre-qualify tool as well, so you don't have to worry about getting a hard pull when you do it. But to get that 90,000 point bonus, you're probably going to either need to call in or find a referral link from somebody that has a targeted offer. Or I'll talk about it in a little bit, have incognito and try and outsmart them. But yeah, so Chase Sapphire Preferred, again, this is the top of the top. So this is tier 1 bank, the best card that they have bank issued. It's a Visa signature. So it's a higher limit ceiling. It's got a starting limit of 5,000. So you don't want to get denied by being at too low of a limit approval. But yeah, it's a great card. I'll talk about it in a couple slides. Same thing, 3x on restaurants and food delivery, 2x on travel, 1x on everything. And it's a $95 annual fee, but it comes with a $50 hotel credit. So it's effectively only $45. And it also gives you like 5x back at Lyft and some other benefits. But the main benefits I stated there. So why these 3? These are tier 1 and tier 2 credit cards. So they're really good quality cards, but they also put your foot in the door with major points ecosystems. Those are the top 3 points ecosystems to be in: Chase, Amex, and Built. So you will be earning the right type of points. They'll be able to go the farthest, right? What's crazy about Built is they're the only other company besides Chase that can transfer to Hyatt, which is insane. And they're also the only company besides American Airlines that can turn their points into American Airlines miles, which are one of the most heavy hitter miles. I'd say the second strongest points in the airline space. So that's pretty cool. The Amex Gold and the Sapphire Preferred have pre-qualified tools that you can use to safely test the waters before applying. So I always recommend that you use pre-qualified tools and get a soft pull with no impact to your credit to see what they think of your credit situation. That way you don't apply for something, get an inquiry on your report, and then get denied. So just for safety. And so they're all keeper cards, which means they make sense to keep for life, even if you downgraded, soft drawered them, right? The Built card's already zero annual fee, but Sapphire Preferred can downgrade to a Sapphire, which is not even shown on the menu. It's a secret item. You can just call in, product change to it, and now you have a 0 annual fee Sapphire card. Yeah. So 3 to 6 months down the line, if you get a starting lineup like that, you will be able to have your foot in the door with American Express and go for the Blue Business Plus. So as a sole prop business credit card, this will be able to have a targeted offer of at least 50K or so up to 50K MR points. It's a really simple card, no annual fee and 2x back on everything for up to $50,000 in spend per year. So that's super simple. Most people will, barely max this out if their business is just starting out. So it's great. And then it's got 0% for 12 months. So it's cool because it actually doesn't report on your personal or your business. So American Express is cool in that sense. So yeah, which points are the best? We talked about it. Chase, Amex, Built. They're the top of the pyramid. These points don't expire and they can turn into so many different things that they're the most flexible ones to have. So you want to just keep these on the sidelines until you're ready to use them in the way that you want. You don't want to get to fall into those marketing tactics of showing off airline credit cards or hotel credit cards. Very rarely are those the best points to be earning. Usually the only time that they're actually good to use is if it's directly with the company that it's with. So if it's a Hyatt credit card, right, a personal Chase Hyatt credit card, it only has the best benefit when you're spending at Hyatt, right? But we really like to use points instead of spending. And we have travel cards that give us a decent amount of kickback. So not really worth involving it in your personal setup. You can always grab a business card version of those things and have it not showing on your report if you want. But we're talking about a baseline setup, right, of absolute like necessary cards. And those are the 3 that I chose. So yeah, there's no flexibility in earning hotel or airline ecosystem points because they'll be stuck in that particular ecosystem. Real quick, I did want to let you guys know of the sneaky stuff that Amex does here. So they're going to track your interest in their cards based on your cookies, based on you're using incognito mode or not, even your geolocation, all that stuff. They're going to track you and your interest, and then they're going to alter the sign-up bonus to you. So this was actually seconds apart. I went ahead and I used the normal browser and I looked up the Amex card and I had a 60K bonus offer. I went on incognito and cleared my cookies and I got a 75K bonus offer. Same page, same exact link. It was just, it turned different because of my tracking history. So it's crazy that they do this. And there's actually like 3 or 4 different bonus offers at any one point. So the best way to see the all-time highs and lows and then the current offers that are valid is to go to uscreditcardguide.com as a resource, and they will literally show you a chart of what's current right now, what's targeted, what you can get through a referral link. And then you can also definitely call in to see what the best offer is for you, because sometimes new ones come out. So some tips when hitting your credit card bonuses would be, you want to make sure you hit your sign-up bonus in the 2nd or 3rd month. I would not recommend hitting it in the 1st month, like hitting 4K in spend on the very first 30 days that you have with a new company, because that's going to look pretty risky. You also want to avoid initial spending at risky merchants. So if your first purchase or if your first month of purchasing is at a jewelry store or for watches or anything crazy of a merchant to spend, especially, I mean, there are people that mess up their relationships with Amex because they get a business platinum card and the first purchase they go and make is some crazy, purchase at even, Saks Fifth, or they buy a Rolex or something like that. And because they have 0 interest or whatever, they think, oh, well, I'm fine. But they're literally looking at not just the purchase activity, but the quality of like, where are you purchasing from? And why does that make sense, right? Why would you buy that? It's a red flag you don't need to have happen. So I would recommend you also make a small payment in the first month, not just swiping. Make sure you give them something. It could be $20, $50, anything, just to make them see that, okay, this person is not just taking advantage fully of this card. Like they want to have some sort of amount paid off, right? Even if it's 0%, I've just seen that has better effects and puts you less on the radar, especially when your relationship's new, for sure. Don't just take the first bonus you see. Look around, call, look for referral links, stuff like that. You guys saw an example of that just now. Use a player 2 if you have one. So the terminology player 2 is just in the credit space. It means basically a partner. So it could be a significant other, a family member, whatever. You guys can pool your points together. So you can hit a bonus of 60,000 and they can hit a bonus of 60,000 if you guys both get the card, because you're both building up your credit profiles, and you can actually combine those points wherever you're going to transfer them to and then use them for, a 4-night or a 5-night stay. Sometimes there's even sweet spots where if you spend 4 nights at a particular hotel, they'll give you the 5th night free. So sometimes it does make sense to pool your points until you have a really good stretch of vacation that you have planned, and then get like a little boost at the end because they see you spending it all collectively like that. So, strength in numbers. Approval tips here. You want to apply for the built card during a sequence, ideally. So normally I would say you can apply for all 3 of these at once, because we're going to be able to soft pull and check that our Amex Gold and Sapphire Preferred say yes to us, like they're encouraging us to apply, and that would be a good sign that Built will also accept us. Amex is most likely going to pull Experian. Chase is going to pull Experian too, so I do Chase first, most likely because they're a little more increase sensitive. Amex would be second; they're less increase sensitive, and then Built will either pull TransUnion. I've seen Equifax rarely, and then maybe Experian, but having 3 in that stretch of application sequences would be completely fine. Even better if the inquiries spread out. I have a method that I've talked about in the past of getting Amex with no inquiry, but I'll speak on that later. But here's some tips. So apply during a sequence. No data mining needed. I haven't seen it be necessary that you start a personal checking account to get friendly with Wells Fargo to get this card. But if you'd like, you can get a Wells Fargo checking account for brownie points, basically, to make sure you get an approval. It's, opening a checking account is not credit related. So you can always do that to kind of benefit you and get you a little more, rapport built with that particular institution. So I would data mine though with American Express early on, as early as possible. As soon as you turn 18, you can go get a high yield savings account online, no monthly fee. It's completely free to start up. You can just put $10 in it, something to keep it open. And that will be allowing you to get an online monitoring account set up with them. So you'll have a login, username, password, and then you'll also be able to put some money in there if you want, earning whatever interest, but mostly just to show them that you exist, right, as a customer, so they can start targeting you. And then the business checking is actually really cool. I think right now they have a 30,000 MR point bonus just for putting, I think, $5,000 in there, holding it for 60 days and doing some transactions. So that's pretty cool. And they would also, build rapport with them. You can also data mine with authorized user accounts and employee cards. So you don't actually have to be an employee of that business credit account to be added on as an employee card. So anyone can get added on. It's just a terminology thing. AUs for sure. Like if you have friends or family that you can go get added onto as an AU, that can build your credit score. Again, I wouldn't pay for them. I would not be, getting charged huge amounts to get added onto an AU. But if you can do it for free and their credit profile is good, so that particular credit account has all the marks that we like, then we add it onto our credit profile and it would at least get us a score generated if we're starting from blank slate. So yeah, using the pre-qual tool after the credit is built would be, I'd say 3 to 6 months down the road from getting your pledge loans and getting your AUs and getting maybe one secured credit card, like the Navy Federal secured credit card. It's the only secured credit card I really back besides that one. And I don't want to pick, I definitely don't want to pick Discover, definitely not Capital One. Sable One is one that I've heard of that graduates in 4 months, but I've also heard bad reviews from them not fulfilling on their promise. So I don't want to, advocate for that one, but I would definitely advocate for the Navy Federal secured card. Again, they have a pre-qual tool as well. So you could even get denied for the secured card if you don't use the pre-qualified tool. So make sure you do that the pre-qualified tool shows the secured card. You would grab that. And then what's crazy is 6 months after owning that card, after responsible usage, you would get that transferred into the Cash Rewards credit card, which is a unsecured credit card of theirs that can go up to 50,000. And then after 1 year of owning the Cash Rewards credit card, you can product change into the flagship credit card, which has a 80,000 limit capability. And you can credit limit increase every 91 days. So you can ask for up to $8,000 more every 91 days, given that you're using it responsibly and that you justify the increase. And you can literally work your way up from blank slate, right, the secured card, all the way to the flagship product with just product changes over maybe the course of, it'd be a year and a half is the soonest you can do it, which is crazy to not have to go, apply for a new credit product. You can work your way up. That's the importance of understanding the upgrade and downgrade capabilities. So yeah, lastly with the Chase, data mine by getting a Chase checking for sure. Honestly, I would make that your main bank, if not Navy Federal, and get a $200 bonus. You can look that up. Just look up new checking account welcome bonus with Chase, and they'll give you $200 for starting it up. Yeah, super simple. For all applications, I would recommend, technically not recommend, but I'll state that they favor full-time employed people over students. So that's just for something you to note. Stated income can actually usually include the household income. So you plus whoever's in the house, if you're 21 and up. And then you can always data mine if it's possible to get more report built with that bank. So the ideology that we use is like date before you marry, obviously. So you want to show them that you exist, have rapport with them, right? Get money in and out of there, use their cards, even the debit card, put some transaction on it if you have to, but mostly have money sitting there. And then you can go for the ask maybe 3 months in. And then when your credit profile is good for it, and always use the pre-qual tools if possible. So we got to keep in mind that that credit is chess, not checkers. So you should always be thinking long-term on the moves that you're making, because you don't want to have like a weird setup that would, you want to close certain cards or they don't make sense, but you're keeping them anyways. And they're just kind of like annoyingly there. They're not increasing in limits, stuff like that. You don't want to get stuck with those. So definitely plan ahead. So if your primary credit file is completely blank, by the way, don't go attempting to apply for the cards that I just stated. Build it up correctly first. If you guys want a particular resource, you can go to episode 2 of my podcast that talks about how you can start from complete scratch. And it tackles the whole best credit card debacle for when you're first starting out, and how I explained that installment loans are actually recommended, not credit cards in the beginning. So I want to do a quick versus because this was actually, very similar, but I wanted to point out some differences. So The rent payment X factor is always going to be, for Built, because Chase is not coming out with that, at least not notably. So they have crazy flash bonuses for, there's certain categories, like they'll sometimes give like 6x back on gas, or 4x back on rent or whatever. And so that their incentives are really good right now. I'm not sure if it's just because they're a new company and they're trying to show off, or if it's going to maintain like that, but right now it's cool. They also have a killer referral program I talked about. You can get up to 2 million points by referring people to the card. And it would make sense to refer people because it's really part of a starting lineup for everybody. And it's a 0 annual fee card, so everyone can justify it. Super rare that it transfers to American Airlines, and there's no sign-up bonus right now, so that's kind of a con. But this is kind of like a crash course on that card. Over here, though, we have the Visa Signature lineup. So Visa on its own will normally, we'll say that's just a normal tier Visa card. Visa Signature is a step up from that. So it would have a minimum starting limit of 5K and then a higher limit ceiling. And then above that, there's actually the Visa Infinite, which is the Sapphire Reserve, which is the preferred's bigger brother, that has a starting limit of 10,000 and then a way higher limit ceiling. So this can upgrade into that. So you're locked into that ladder. It's a tier 1 keeper card. It's absolutely top of the ladder. So that's why I'd say it's really quality there. Upgrade and downgrade options like we just talked about. There are incoming Sapphire lounges. I think there's about 14 coming out at major airports, and Chase is trying to battle with Amex for the Centurion Lounge aspect. So the Sapphire lineup will have some access to those lounges. Those are coming out. Not really talked about yet because there's still only 1 or 2 that are launched, but they're coming out soon. Also, I would build rapport with Chase because their business side is so good. So those really good 2 0 APR cards, high limits, especially stated income, and especially for people starting out. So that's why I would show them, similarly, that I can handle a credit product with them, and that would carry over. Also, this is a main X factor, I believe, that the Sapphire has that no one else has. Primary rental coverage. So when you rent a car from Hertz, Alamo, Enterprise, etc., you're going to get primary coverage on the rental collision damage that you usually have to pay for, an extra like $30 a day or whatever. They're going to completely cover it. So you can waive the fee at the rental lot, and then you can know that if you swipe that rental purchase with the Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve, you will have that covered completely as a primary line of defense, basically. So you won't even have to tell your insurance that you got in a collision. If you did, and the Sapphire lineup, the Chase cards will be the ones handling everything. Versus even the Amex Platinum only has secondary coverage on rental car damage waivers and stuff like that, which is crazy that this little card with only $95 annual fee has that feature. Because I use that all the time when I'm using, travel hacks, going to somewhere, getting a corporate code that gives me a cheaper rental car rate. So I'll be getting a car, I'm under 25 and I'm getting a car for like $30 plus tax, and I'm getting that rental damage fee normally added on, completely waived, right? And the young driver fee because of the corporate code I use. But yeah, so this one has a sign-up bonus, which is really good. But yeah, that's the main thing I want to point out about that card. And the Amex Gold standalone slide here, effectively a $10 annual fee, like I stated. It's a charge card, so it won't affect your utilization because it has no limit that's stated on your credit report. The charge card also is an easier approval because they know that you're going to spend all of it. They know that you're going to pay all of it off, everything that you spend, because it's a month-to-month full balance had to be paid off type card. Some people also ask me, what happens if I don't pay the full balance? Basically, they'll just close the card and then still demand that it be due, and they'll be charging interest to it. So you don't want to take them off by not paying the balance in full. That's how they want the card to be used. There is a pay over time feature, but the APR is never really like worth it. So worst case, you would do a pay over time type deal, but normally they want it paid off by the next statement. It's the second highest card in the Amex family. So it's basically the flagship card. It's the flagship duo. You got the Amex Gold and the Amex Platinum. So you're showing them that you can handle a really high quality card, which I think is a good move. Sets you up for soft pull credit cards all through the future. So now that you're in the Amex family and you have an Amex personal card, any other Amex card that you get will be a complete soft pull. So we'll have no impact to your credit. If you get another personal card, which I don't really recommend, I really only recommend the personal gold and then moving on to the business side. But then if you get all business cards in the future, they will also only be soft pulls. So no impact to your credit. You can grab all of them. I literally grabbed 6 Amex cards in a weekend. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I got 2 each day. I think it was the Amex Plat. So Biz Plat, Biz Gold, Biz Plum, Biz Green, and then I got the Biz Marriott, Biz Hilton. all in the same weekend, all instant approvals. That was because I had a year of relationship with Amex. I recommend you have at least 6 months before you try to pull anything like that off, like multiple card applications, but no impact to my credit score, no hard pull. So that was pretty cool. The particular like gold and platinum cards arrive in like 2 business days. So sometimes even 1 business day is crazy, but they just try to do that to give you like a premium experience when you get these type of cards. But yeah, so these points are best used for airlines. We don't use Amex points for hotels. We use Chase points and Bilt points for hotels, usually Hyatt, because they have a better kick to them. So these points never expire. Groceries is included in this card, so it's rare. 3x on airlines is overlooked a lot of times, and it's got a solid and very achievable sign-up bonus. 4K in 6 months is crazy. Usually they give 3 months being the timeline for all sign-up bonuses, but this one has 6 months, so that's super easy. I think I'll talk about creative ways to hit spend here. So yeah, and you can also downgrade to the green card for less of an annual fee if you want, which is not talked about often, or upgrade to the platinum. And sometimes they even give you a sign-up bonus, which is very rare that they would ever, I think they're the only company that does that, gives you a sign-up bonus to upgrade. So to product change. Normally you give up the sign-up bonus if you want a product change into the next card. And so like the Sapphire Preferred turning into the Sapphire Reserve, not a big deal to lose the sign-up bonus because you don't actually lose it. By choosing the preferred, you can never get the reserve bonus anyway. So even if you canceled the card and then immediately went for the reserve, you would not be able to finesse the system like that. So we're not actually losing anything on that upgrade situation. But yeah, so it'd be pretty cool. You know, if you wanted to maintain the age of that particular account on your credit profile and not like either close it or get a new account and just literally product change and keep that account looking solid. If that makes sense, hopefully. Maximizing spend, 3 things you want to do off the top would be revolving. Oh yeah, so you want to revolve sign-up bonuses around major purchases that you have. So if you're planning to get a camera, laptop, furniture, anything like that, you want to, you know, think about a card or thinking about doing your personal sequence or whatever around that time and purchasing those things around that time. So if you're already planning on paying it, again, like I only recommend that you use credit as like a debit card essentially, on purchasing only what you can afford, right? Or a very small time period of paying it right back. But yeah, so if you're already making big purchases, you can do that. You can also offer to pay and have others pay you. So if you're going to, you know, a big dinner and there's a huge tab, you can offer to pay with your card that you have a sign-up bonus on and have people Venmo you, Zelle you, give you cash, whatever. You can also pay for, you know, events, appliances, anything that is a huge expense that is from someone you know. You wouldn't believe the amount, the things that I see being purchased on debit that could have otherwise earned major points or sign-up bonuses on credit cards. So I've seen a particular example where someone was going to get, you know, their parent was going to get like a $20,000 purchase in solar panels because they were, you know, signing up for solar. And they were about to pay with a debit card, but I think I told them to get the business platinum sign-up bonus, which was like 15K in 3 months. And so that 20K was easily going to cover that. And so they got like 150,000 points for no reason, plus the 20K that they actually swiped for. And they were going to pay it off anyways, like immediately as if it was a debit card. So it made perfect sense and they were able to hit that bonus super easily. Also, you can add or consider adding trustworthy members on authorized users. So if you get approved for a card and they have, you know, no credit set up currently, they can build a relationship with that bank and also get you points by spending on your card as an authorized user. You can obviously set limits for them on spending. So you can set it to where they can only spend $1,000 a month. But obviously they should be trustworthy because they will be racking it up on your account. But it could teach them, you know, financial literacy if you're giving it to a family member that you trust and that you know is good for it. But it could be an additional, you know, 1,000 or 2 per month. So this is for the business owners. This is huge because I was talking to a few people in the WICK group and I was like asking them what their top 2 expenses were per month. And a lot of times I actually heard payroll being the first or the second most high expense. So I thought that was interesting. Well, I'm going to go do some research in, you know, what can credit and payroll have to work together. And so Plastique, which is a company that's known for helping you pay your rent, helping you pay certain things that you can't normally pay with credit cards. They're basically the portal to allow you to pay it. So you actually pay Plastique, and then Plastique will send out a check, you know, after they give you like a small fee it's like a processing fee to go ahead and process your credit card payment, and then they'll go pay whoever they need to pay it. So Plastique made a partnership with ADP, which is like one of the biggest payroll providers out there, and so now you'll be able to use Plastique to charge your credit card for your payroll. So you'll literally be able to earn points or hit sign-up bonuses, you know, at the best ROI would be revolving it around a sign-up bonus. Via credit card entirely. So this could be a big thing for a lot of people. They will send an ACH deposit, like a direct deposit or a check to whoever you want using this setup. So definitely look into it if it interests you. But this is the main partnership that they have. So I thought that would be cool to hit sign-up bonus super easily for people that have a lot of people under them. And so there is a quick slide for earning points without actually having credit cards yet. This is big because I don't hear this talked about with the Rakuten side of things. But so these partnerships, actually, someone just sent me a reel of like Delta and Starbucks and thinking like, yo, bro, I never heard of this. I'm like, I've known about it for months now. And it's crazy that I know it's just some things become second nature and don't seem like a huge deal, but they do. They are a huge deal to other people. And if any of these partnerships, you know, are good for you, then you actually will get a lot of benefit out of them if you use them often. So you'll get Delta Sky Miles just by, you know, buying coffee at Starbucks if you link the Starbucks account to Delta. So you'll go on the Starbucks app and then plug in your Delta Sky Miles number, and you'll get points, vice versa. Same thing with Lyft. If you link your Lyft and Delta together, you will get Delta Sky Miles every time you take Lyft rides. And then this one is if you take Uber or Uber Eats purchases, you can get Aeroplan points, which are, you can actually get Marriott points as well, but I'd say Aeroplan is a lot stronger. So it's an airline, and it's partnered with a few airlines that you know. So I would get that linked up. All those you can do instantly today for free. Just have accounts with both companies and you'll be good to go. And then shopping portals. So Rakuten is known for giving cash back, but what most people don't know is you can actually get Amex membership rewards points if you opt in to get that instead. So instead of 10 or 20% back on a particular purchase, like during Black Friday or any hot periods of like holidays and stuff and flash sales that they do, they might have up to 20% back on a particular merchant. Well, that could be as good as 20x back in MR points, which we know are worth 3 times that, right? So that could be more like if it's 20% back, times 3 would be effectively 60% back on your money. And that's that baseline redemption. Remember, we're only talking about 3 cents per point in that case. So that's huge. You just literally need to go on your desktop on your Rakuten account and then go to your payment preferences and then change it to MR points, plug in your MR. So your membership rewards like login, and you'll literally get sent points quarterly to you instead of cash back. So super dope. And then also points, cashback in that sense is a rebate as well, but points will be obviously tax-free. So American Airlines, their shopping portal can also help you earn American Airlines miles and spend your way to status as well. So I have a buddy who, he does online arbitrage. So he spends a lot at online retail stores. And one of the stores, his main suppliers, was on this site, and it was giving like 4 miles per dollar. And he had no knowledge of this, but he was spending like $2,000 a day in inventory. And so he literally went in like a week or two up to the top status, like executive platinum pro. And he had a ton of points just from the normal spend that he was already doing. And he was like extremely thankful because now he gets like first class upgrades on every flight that he does with American Airlines. So that was a cool opportunity. And same thing on Rakuten. If anybody has a supplier that goes through Rakuten, then that could be a big deal. So that's where I'm going to wrap it up. Again, it's hard to crash course everything especially in like an hour or so on like what's possible, but that's why I wanted to leave it up for Q&A right now. I'll take questions. We can let people unmute. So I'm going to, so I'm going to switch that setting and then so that's the end of the presentation as far as what I had. Let me know if that additional part made sense. One's in the chat if you guys liked how it was from start to finish. And now we'll be taking questions. Max,